Good morning, students. Today we shall discuss the poem Fire and Ice, written by Robert Frost. Fire and Ice is a short, thought-provoking poem written by Robert Frost that tells the readers about how the life on the planet can come to an end either due to fire or due to ice. The poet regards fire as symbolic of man's greed and excessive desires. Ice is symbolic of man's hatred, malice, and insensitive nature. Due to these traits, the poet feels that the earth could end either in fire or in ice. Now, let's go into the poem. Please open page 15 in your main textbook, First Flight. Now let's look at the theme. Robert Frost in this short poem predicts two possible ways by which the world could come to an end. He says that some people are of the opinion that the world would get destroyed because of fire, and some others feel the world would end because of ice. The poet regards fire as symbolic of desire and greed. According to him, ice stands for hatred, malice, coldness of heart, etc. Now, let's look at the extracts and their meanings. Let's go into the first four lines of the poem. Some say the world will end in fire, some say in ice. From what I have tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. Explanation. The poet says that some people in the world feel that the world would end in fire, and some others feel it would end in ice. The poet regards fire as a representation of man's never-ending greed and desire. So, he says that from his experience with desire, he feels that those who say fire would destroy the world are correct, and he supports their view. Now let's look at the last four lines of the poem. But if it had to perish twice, I think I know enough of hate to say that for destruction, ice is also great and would suffice. Explanation. Here, the poet says that if the world had to get destroyed a second time, then he feels that ice too is sufficient to destroy the world. He regards ice as a representation of man's negative traits such as hatred, malice, insensitive nature, and unkindness. Since he has experienced hate, he feels that even ice can destroy this whole world through man's unkindness. Now let's look at some of the questions. How does fire affect us? Fire represents man's never-ending greed and desires that could result in the destruction of the world. Mankind is never satisfied and always wants to get more, and his desires never end. This could result in people fighting one another and thus destroying the world. Most wars, quarrels, arguments are the result of man's hunger to satisfy his desires and greed. How does eyes affect us? Eyes, on the other hand, represents negative feelings like hatred, malice, and coldness at heart. People are more keen to satisfy themselves and have become more selfish and narrow-minded. They don't have any concern, love, or affection to their fellow beings, and this could make people avoid one another and engage in activities of violence and harm which could end life and this world. What does the poet finally say? The poet says that both fire and ice, in their literal sense, can bring destruction to the earth. But worse and more certain is the case where the world would end because of man's hatred and cruelty. Man's hatred and fiery anger, or his coldness and insensitive nature, could wreak riots on the earth that can destroy it forever. He advises readers to abstain from any such tendencies and lead a virtuous life free from greed, hatred, and malice. Now, let's look at the poetic devices in the poem Fire and Ice, written by Robert Frost. Symbolism. Both fire and ice are symbolic. Fire symbolizes desires, greed, and excessive passion. Ice symbolizes hatred, malice, and dislike shown by some to others. The next poetic device is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of identical sounds in adjacent words in poetry. The first sound in favor fire and the sound were in world will are examples of alliteration. We also have the sir sound in some say as an example for alliteration. Now let's look at the rhyme scheme of the poem. The poem runs into 9 lines and the first 3 lines rhyme as A, B, A. The last word of each line of the first 3 lines are fire, ice, and desire, and they rhyme as A, B, A. Then the next 3 lines, the last word of each line happens to be fire, twice, hate, and there the rhyme scheme is A, B, C. And the last 3 lines, the last words are ice, great, suffice, and here the rhyme scheme is B, C, B. Now the poem also has an example for anaphora. Anaphora, the repetition of a word or expression at the start of 2 or more consecutive lines. Here in the poem we can find that the words some say repeat in line 1 and line 2, and therefore some say is an example for anaphora. With this, we come to the end of the discussion of the poem Fire and Ice, written by Robert Frost. Thank you.